Greetings and welcome to Lesson 6.1, Percents, Decimals, and Fractions. In previous lectures, we chatted about unit pricing, ratios, rates, and proportions. All of those were comparison. We were comparing for unit pricing the price of the item versus how many units were in it. Ratios were comparing maybe miles to other miles. Rates were maybe miles to the gallon or miles to the hour. And proportions were like similar figures where it's proportionately comparing two ratios. Okay? Now we're going to work with percents. And all percent is, we're comparing it to 100. Cent, like century, meaning 100, and it's going to be per 100. So instead of per diaper or per ounce or per mile or per hour, we're always going to compare per 100. So when we write percent, we're always going to use this symbol. It's a slash with two dots on it. Now, sometimes I write mine with two open dots, sometimes it's two closed dots. I think it's too hard to see the two closed dots, so I generally will write the open dot for you to see that this is a percent. But it's comparison of a whole something. So here's factors of traffic. Increased trip length. The population is a factor of traffic. Fewer occupants in a car, are factors of traffic. They switch from maybe bicycle or a bus or train to driving, and trips taken, how many trips you take, are all factors of traffic. So if you thought about it, the whole entire thing is 100% of the factors of traffic, kind of, sort of. At least how we're looking at it would be 100%. And each little piece, increased trip length, population, fewer occupants, switch to driving, and trips taken, are a little piece of that whole entire factors of traffic. So this is just a visual way of looking at it. It's also called a pie chart. So a piece of the whole entire pie would be traffic. The little piece would be each of the factors of traffic. Let's get to the official definition. Percent means per 100. Writing a number as a percent is a way of comparing that number to 100. Okay. 42%, the symbol reads as percent, so we say it as 42%. And if we're comparing it to 100, then 42% would be 42 over 100. Percents are just ratios with the denominator always being 100. So let's take a look at an example. We'll write each percent as a fraction. Now remember, the fraction must have the denominator to be 100. So 33%, 6%, 160%. 33% will look like 33 over 100. 6% will look like 6 over 100. No, we're not going to reduce right now. It's just 6 over 100. And 160% is 160 over 100. Yes, it's okay that your percent is over 100. It happens all the time, so don't worry about that. Just going to write it over 100. As I said, even though we can reduce 6 over 100 and 160 over 100, we're going to leave it as a ratio to 100. Otherwise, it's no longer a percent. It's just a ratio. Right? There is another way of writing percents. One is fractional. The other is writing it as a decimal. Okay? Let's go ahead and change 35.2% to a decimal. Yes, I know there's already a decimal in here, but when we have this percent symbol, that percent symbol always means we're comparing it to 100. So it is not a clean decimal number. Right? So 35.2 to 100 will equal, well, 100 divided into 35.2. 100 does not go into 35, but 100 does go into 352 3 times. 52. Let's go ahead and add a trailing 0 for a placeholder and bring it down. 100 goes into 500 5 times. 0. Okay. Oops. 52. Sorry about that. Leaving me with 20. Bring that next trailing 0 placeholder down. 100 goes into 200 2 times with no remainder, so we get to stop. So 35.2% written as a decimal is going to be 0.352. In other words, when we divide it by 100, we move this decimal 2 to the left. 2 to the left, and we will get our answer. So either do the long division by dividing by 100, or we can be a little bit quicker and move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. Okay. So when we drop that percent symbol, move the decimal 2 places to the left. So I'm going to just try an example here. And I want 2.35% written as a decimal. And I want to use this dropping the percent symbol and move the decimal 2 places to the left. Alright, so I'm going to drop the percent symbol, 3, 5, and then I need to move my decimal 2 places to the left. 1, and if I don't have any numbers, I can add a 0, 2. So 2.35% will equal 0.0235. That's how you work with just dropping the percent symbol and moving the decimal places 2 places to the left. Alright, so let's use that rule to change a percent to a decimal, drop the percent symbol, and move the decimal point 2 places to the left. And we're going to write each of these percents as a decimal. So first things first, drop the percent symbol. My decimal is all the way to the right. 2 spaces to the left. So my decimal is going to be 0.37. Let's try it again. I have 68%. First thing I'm going to do is drop the percent symbol. 68. But I need to move the decimal 2 places to the left. 1, 2. Giving me 0.68 as my decimal. It's no longer a percent, it's a decimal. 120%. First things first, let's drop the percent symbol. 120. Now let's move the decimal 2 places to the left. It's all the way to the right now. 1, 2. Therefore, my decimal version of 120% is 1.2. You could have 0.20, but it's not necessary. All right. My last example is 0.8%. First thing is drop that percent symbol, 0.8, and now I need to move that decimal 2 places to the left. 1, and I need another 0 to move it another place. So my answer will be 0.008 will be my decimal. That it means the same thing as 0.8%. So I think, you've probably been to the convenience store or the local pharmacy and seen typical cortisone cream. That's like that stuff that helps you not scratch bug bites. Okay, so typical cortisone cream is 0.5% hydrocortisone. That's the stuff that makes it anti-itch. We want to know what the decimal version of 0.5% will be. So 0.5% will be, first step, drop the percent symbol. Now move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. 1, 2. I had to put a little placeholder in there. So the 0.5% will equal 0.005. That's the decimal version. Now that we know how to change percents to decimals, let's change the decimals to percent. So to change decimal to a percent, we're going to move the decimal to the right 2 places, then add the percent symbol. Okay. So let's take a peek at a couple of decimals we can work with. So 0.27, 4.89, 0.5, and 0.09. And we want to change each of these decimals over to a percent. Let's try the first one. Okay. Our thing is 0.27, and now I need to move the decimal 2 places to the right. 1, 2. Therefore, it's going to be 27%. You cannot forget the percent symbol. Moving the decimal is not good enough. Okay. 4.89. We need to move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. 2 positions. 1, 2. So that will be 489, and then add the percent symbol. Do not forget to add the percent symbol. Right. 0.5. We need to move the decimals to the right 2 positions. 1. Go ahead and add a placeholder. 2. Therefore, 0.05 is 50%. Last one. 0.09. Let's move the decimal 2 positions. 1, 2 to the right. That gives me 9%. No, you don't keep the leading zeros. You keep that trailing 0, because 5% is definitely different than 50%. But you don't keep the heading, the zeros that come before the 9. Now here's an example. I already worked it out for you, but a softball player has a batting average of 0.650. As a percent, this number is, well, 0.650. Remember, we're moving the decimal over 2 spots and adding the percent symbol. So that is 65% of the time that softball player will hit the ball. That's actually really good. Now I know we're kind of taking the shortcut route where we're moving the decimal 2 positions either to the left or to the right. So here's mathematically what we're really doing. When we move the decimal to the right 2 places, we're really multiplying the decimals by 100. Okay? And when we move the decimals 2 places to the left, we're really dividing by 100. So there is some math involved, but we can kind of take the shortcut route. Okay, so we have changed the decimal to a percent to decimal. Now let's change the percent to a fraction. So out of all of them, this is kind of the easiest one. Kind of. To change the percent to a fraction, we drop the percent symbol and we write the original number, whatever it is, over 100. So let's have an example of a health care bill. And 36% of that bill is covered by private insurance, 19% is covered by the patient, and 45% is covered by the government. I want to know what fraction of each of those is covered by the percent. Right. So I want to change the 36% over to a fraction. So first step is drop the percent symbol and write it over 100. Now, because we are working with fractions now, we are going to reduce. Right. Well, we can divide by 2 and divide by 2. That will give us 50, and 2 goes into 36 18 times. We can divide 18 by 2, and we can divide 50 by 2. That will give us 9/25. That is our fraction. Fractions are always in reduced terms. Let's see the patient. We start with dropping the percent symbol, and then we write it over 100. And since we cannot reduce, 19 is a prime number, we cannot reduce it, we are done. We like this one. It gets done really fast. All right, the portion of the government in fraction form, first things first, we drop the percent symbol, and we write it over 100. Now, we reduce this fraction. Divide by 5, divide by 5, 45 divided by 5 is 9, 100 divided by 5 is 20. Okay. Now, not all fractions or percents to fraction are that direct. Sometimes we have to manipulate it a little bit. Pardon me. Ooh. Okay, so let's change 4.5 to a fraction in lowest terms. First things first, we'll write it without the percent symbol. Second step, we'll write it over 100. Alright, well, fractions don't have decimals as numerators or denominators, so let's get rid of that decimal. And to do that, I'm going to multiply the top by 10. But what I do to the numerator, I must do to the denominator. This will give me 45, decimal is gone. 100 times 10 is 1,000. Now I need to change it to lowest terms. Well, I do know I can divide by 5 and divide by 5. That's 45 divided by 5 is 9. 1,000 divided by 5 is 200, and that is lowest form. 9 doesn't share anything in common with 200. Let's try another one kind of similar to this one, but this time let's do 32.5%, and we want to change that to a fraction in lowest terms. Well, first things first, we drop the percent symbol. So we have 32.5, and then we write it over 100. Well, a fraction with a fraction is a complex fraction. We don't want that. So the first thing we could do is we could change this to an improper fraction. 2 times 32 is 64, plus 1 is 65 over 2, all over 100. Now I'm going to treat it like a regular fraction problem. So this is really 65 over 2 divided by 100. Okay, remember 100 has a 1 underneath it. But we don't divide by fractions, therefore we change it to the multiplication of the reciprocal. 65 over 2 times 1 over 100. Okay, let's go ahead and do that math. 65 times 1 is 65. 2 times 100 is 200. The only thing we need to do here is reduce down to lowest terms. Let's divide by 5, divide by 5. That's going to give us 13 over 40. And 13 over 40 cannot be reduced. 13 is prime. Therefore, that's our solution. But you can't leave it as a fraction over a fraction. It just doesn't, it's not the appropriate way to write a fraction. So you do want to change it over to an improper fraction. Then do the division, change it to multiplication, and then reduce. Now there is a second way of doing that problem. The second way is change this half to a decimal. So we get 32.5%. Then write that over, drop the percent, write it over 100, multiply each by 10, and then reduce. And you still get the same answer. It's just, what is your preference? Change it over to decimal or leave it as a fraction? Alright, so now let's change fractions to percents. And unfortunately, there's not really an easy way of doing this. We have to go through changing the fraction to a decimal, then changing the decimal to a percent. So let's suppose that the price your bookstore pays for your textbook is 7/10 of the price you pay. Let's write 7/10 as a percent. First step we want to do is change the 7/10 into a decimal. So 7/10, either you do the division and you'll get 0.7, or since it is 7/10, that is 0.7, it's tenths. Now that we have it in decimal form, either way you work it out, we want to change it over to percent. So what was our rule of changing to percent? We move the decimal 2 places to the right, 1, 2, and add the percent symbol. So 0.7 will be 70%. Alright, so let's change 3/8 to a percent. Well, the only way to do it is to get first the 3/8 into a decimal. So that is doing the division of 8 divided into 3. And when you do that, you get the decimal of 0.375. And now we're going to change that decimal, 0.375, into a percent. Move the decimal 2 places to the right and add a percent symbol. Therefore, 0.375 is 37.5%. Alright, so let's try another example. Let's change 5/12 to a percent. First things first, let's divide 12 into 5. And I know I'm probably going to need some decimal points. I just don't know how many I'm going to need. 12 goes into 5 0 times, but 12 does go into 50. 4 times 12 is 48. Let's take the difference, bring down the next digit. 12 goes into 20 1 time. 1 times 12 is 12. Let's take the difference. 20 minus 12 is 8. Let's bring down another digit. 0. 12 goes into 80. Let's see, 7 would be 84. That's too many. So let's try 6. 6 times 12 is 72. Okay, leaving me 8. Let's add on another 0 and bring it down. And it looks like I'm going to repeat. So it is a repeating decimal. 6666666. Alright, so if I need percent, I should have enough digits here to write that in a percent. So let's write it as a decimal, 0.416 with a bar. Okay. This is also, okay, I'm just going to leave it like that. I'll say also in a moment. So that is going to be, remember, we 1, 2, and add the percent symbol. So 41.6 bar percent. But the 6 bar, we started with fractions. We probably should have some type of fraction here. 666.6666666 is one of those that you should kind of know as 41 and, sorry about that, 41 and 2/3%. Okay, so 66666.666 is 2/3. Okay. You will see this written as both ways, where there's a decimal in the percent as well as a fraction in the percent. Me personally, I like the decimal. I don't want to go back to being a fraction, but it can be written with the fraction. Alright, one more example. Let's change 2.5 to a percent. Well, the first thing I want to do is change my fraction to a decimal. So 2, I'm only worried about the fraction part. Well, 1/2, you could do the math here. So it is 0.5. 1/2 is 0.5, so that will be 2.5. Now let's move the decimal 1, 2 spaces to the right. So 2.5 will equal 250%. Yes, it's okay to be over 100 for percents. It does happen. Okay, there are lots of common fractions to decimal to percent that very few times will I say, hey, you probably should get this into your memory. And I don't mean just memorize it, but utilize it enough to where it's kind of second nature for you. So yes, I guess memorize it. So fraction 1/2 in decimal is 0.5, therefore it's 50%. 1/4 is 0.25, therefore it's 25%. 3/4, 0.75, 75%. 1/3 is 0.33333, in other words 33 1/3%, or 33.3%. 2/3 is 0.6 with a bar, so it's 0.66666. That is going to be 66 2/3%. Also, you could round it to 66.7. I've seen that happen quite frequently. 1/5 is 0.2, 20%. 2/5 is 0.4, therefore it's 40%. 3/5, 0.6, 60%. And 4/5, 0.8, 80%. Those are extremely common to find. So I would highly recommend that you kind of get them in your memory so your math will go a little faster for you. But if not, you can do the math. 2 divided into 1 is 0.5, and then change it over to the decimal by either multiplying by 100 or moving the decimal 2 places to the right, and so on and so forth. So that's it for this lecture. Until next time, be seeing you.